everybody, and Happy New Year. Welcome to Tremco Live. Pretty excited to be able to kick off this new year. I'm Marcy Tyler, the Director of Building Science, and I'm one of the hosts of this program.
And I'm Paul. I'm the president of Tremco Construction Products Group. Marcy, of course, you know that. What a fantastic collection of brands, companies, product systems, and of course, most of all people.
Absolutely, most of all people. So Happy New Year, Paul.
Yeah, same to you. Wow, we made it to
We did, 2022.
And well, perhaps a year from now, COVID might be behind us. But it's making another surge.
It is, it definitely is. Well, as always, we love this opportunity to get up in front of you all on Fridays, and we love sharing content. So in the month of January, what we're going to be looking at is things that are new. Right?
I love new stuff, Marcy. You know that.
You do. Paul likes.
I love new stuff so much. Sometimes you don't want to show it to him because I get overexcited.
He does. He gets really excited. So you don't want to show anything to Paul until it's ready to go. Or else he puts wheels behind it, right?
Yeah.
An engine behind it. So something we're going to talk about today is not new to the industry per se. We're going to talk really about waterproofing, but specifically about a specific application and a pretty innovative product that we have available to you to help really solve that waterproofing that you have on your project. Now, I know, Paul, you and I could talk about waterproofing, but why don't we bring in one of our very own subject matter experts to help us out?
Legend, I would say.
He is a legend. He absolutely is a legend. So at this point, we'd love to welcome Wes Hensley.
Hi, guys.
Hi, Wes.
Hey, Wes.
Happy Friday.
Happy Friday.
Well, thanks for joining us today. I'm really excited to be able to have you on and be able to share your experience. So tell us a little bit about your 26 years at Tremco. Happy anniversary, by the way.
Well, thank you very much. Well, I started off in the lab many years ago and moved into technical services, and I enjoyed helping people so much that I decided to stay within this group. I really enjoy seeing like a project come to completion and getting out there and helping the contractors in the field and helping them with any of their problems and giving them all the great solutions Tremco has to offer.
I think of Wes as the, like, I've been everywhere man guy, right? So if we look at his past and all the projects he's been on, and not just in the US, right? Obviously up in Canada a lot, but of course internationally as well. So we've got, if we followed Wes's journey, it would be quite substantial.
So he has a thick passport.
He does.
Except for the last 2 years where they won't let Wes travel.
I think Wes and I are ready to sit back and watch and help the others at this point.
Help the younger generation.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, so today, Wes, as you know, we're going to be talking more about something that's very near and dear to you, and that's waterproofing systems. So just have up on screen right now a great below grade waterproofing brochure, lots of different information that's available. But I thought we'd kind of kick it off and just kind of walk through what those systems are that we have in terms of applications. So we'll kind of go through that from a general speaking aspect. So when we think about waterproofing, is backfilled walls probably the most common?
Yeah, typically that's the most common below grade application that we come across, and that's just a normal backfilled wall where the contractor has access to the foundation wall that's below grade, so they can actually get behind that wall and apply the waterproofing in a post-applied type of an application.
Yep, that makes sense. Next up, we have what we consider under slab.
Yeah, so under slab basically is the actual on-grade slab that we're talking about. So this is the very bottom of the building foundation. And typically these are sheet applied membranes that will be applied down here.
Yeah, that's important to note too, Paul, right? As we look at these different applications, it's going to require different technologies for them.
And in this application, we're looking at a between slab application. So what this means is that typically you're in an elevated situation, like a parking deck, where you'll have a structural slab, and then they're going to come back and pour a topping slab. So what they want to do many times is waterproof that structural slabs. So they'll put down usually a cold fluid, but you could also use a sheet here. But typically we would recommend a cold fluid because they're monolithic in nature, and you don't have any seams in the situation. Then they'll put usually a drainage or protection course on it and pour their topping slab over that.
Yeah, so that's, and I think what's interesting too, like for certain regions, they're going to have certain types of waterproofing because of how the geography is of that area. Like, for example, Florida, right? You're not going to see a lot of basements in Florida. So they would probably do more of this between slab or sandwich slab application. And then today we're going to feature specifically this one. How about Blindside?
So Blindside application is one in which you don't have access to that foundation wall that's going to be poured below grade, typically because there's some type of access restriction, such in this case, you'll see that there's a roadway or a sidewalk right next to the site. And for the building footprint in itself, the size of the building in this footprint, they didn't have room to fit it in. So what they do is they install basically a lagging wall, they call it. And I think we're going to go into more depth in those different types as we move through this presentation. But basically you have to pre-apply the waterproofing before the wall is even poured.
Well, and this is a little short one, but Paul, we've been on some in Toronto that is 4 stories or more down.
Yeah,
it's intimidating.
I think New York, I've heard as much as 7.
Yeah, so. Yeah, right. It's a lot different, going down and how that feels versus going up.
Way down.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I put these in here too, just because I know we've talked about some basics already, and we can go into a much deeper presentation and dialogue as it relates to all these systems individually. But I didn't want to not mention tunnels, planters, and of course, if you have methane protection, there's going to be specific solutions associated with all of these. But today we really did want to focus once again on Blindside. When you talked about Blindside with me the other day, you defined it as positive side waterproofing. You want to tell us a little bit more kind of about that?
Yeah, well, all of our waterproofing is, we try to do it in a positive manner. So basically that means that you are actually treating the wall on the side that is not in the living area of it. So it's actually the side that the dirt goes against it and where the water would actually hit it. So we want to stop that water before it even gets to the concrete itself. Because even though concrete does a good job for the most part of keeping water out, we all know that over time, during settling and just during the curing process, it can develop some cracks. And if we get some cracks, that could allow some water infiltration. So we want to stop that water before it even gets to that wall. So we want to waterproof what's called the positive side. In a Blindside application, that wall isn't in place yet. So what we actually have to do is pre-apply the waterproofing to what's typically called a lagging or a Blindside wall.
Well, and I think it's interesting, right? Because as we look at different types of below grade applications, and obviously with Blindside as well, Paul, it can get pretty significant in terms of the hydrostatic head pressure that you're experiencing the further and further you go down.
Yeah, Wes, talk to us a little bit about that.
Yeah, so you can have a situation where you're going to be in a submersed condition, and that could even actually be as soon as you start taking earth away in some locations, basically a foot below. But as you go further and further down, that head pressure can grow even to higher amounts. And typically, what we'll do is there's some testing out there that's available or that you can get that measures that hydrostatic pressure that the membranes can take. Typically, they test it to about 100 pounds per square inch of pressure. So that's a lot of pressure over 1 square inch. And our membranes have been tested to that and have passed that requirement. It's actually ASTM D5385. So you really got to make sure that your membranes are are tested and evaluated and are the right ones chosen when you get into a situation where you do have a submerged condition down at the bottom of the thing. And during the construction, many times, and I think Marcy kind of mentions this when we talk about the beginnings of waterproofing, they'll use sumps, but they actually use site wells. And some of these site wells are very, very large. I've been down in Florida, like I think Paul mentioned earlier, or Marcy did, about some of the job sites that are down in Florida where the site wells are so large, they're actually using hoses that you would see that they put fires out, evacuating water out of that site while they're actually working in them. They actually even have life preservers on the walls while the workers are working down there in case of a catastrophic failure in that site well, so that hopefully those guys wouldn't ever have to use them. But if they did, they could fill up those areas could fill in so quickly that people could be obviously hurt. So there are some conditions where you really got to pay attention to when you're getting down, and that's one of the questions that you always get from us at Tremco when there's a call about a waterproofing job, and if it's a blindside job, what kind of conditions? Is this a submerged condition?
Exactly. So I know you touched on a little bit of this already, but when we're looking at those, more urban areas, there isn't that space for you to do your conventional waterproofing, your backfilled walls. So you're going to look at something like blindside. Hopefully a lot of you have already heard that terminology, but we just thought it would be interesting to explain it a little further.
Yeah, I mean, even in some situations, you will actually be building into or right on top of the building that's already existing as well. And many times you can use their pre-existing wall as the blindside wall. And actually put the waterproofing against that wall before you make the pour to the new building wall.
Yeah, and I think we mentioned, or maybe we haven't yet, the tunnels, elevator pits, things like that are just natural ways for blindside waterproofing as well.
Exactly.
Well, and I know because of the way it's constructed, and we're going to get into that, there is different types of waterproofing membranes that need to be used.
Yeah, for blindside applications in particular, there's a couple different kinds out there. Some are chemically bonded, but basically what that means is they treat, or there's some treatment to the sheet good that actually reacts with the chemistry of the concrete and helps that membrane to bond to it. Others are actually mechanically fastened, and then they rely on basically some other way, like a spun bond, propylene or polyester, non-woven type material to help adhere to the concrete. And then others are just not bonded at all and rely on the compaction of that concrete to keep them well bonded and in place.
So all of that's important too, once again, like when you're deciding, which material to choose, but that's where working directly with one of our reps, or of course, one of our tech reps, we can help you out in terms of what you might need in terms of the membrane and that material variation. So let's go a little bit further into talking about the actual blindside application itself.
Well, the blindside application itself, typically when you're talking about some of our products, you can look at all kinds of different history on it, but we typically use a bentonite system that's laminated to a high density polyethylene, or there's newer systems out there that we're going to talk about shortly that use some reactive cores. In the past, as you can see, a lot of times they've just used cement with some crystalline or admixtures in them to help prevent water leakage. But over time, like we talked about, the concrete may crack. And sometimes when you get additional cracking after those additives have already reacted, they may not react again in those areas that have recently cracked. So that's why we always recommend additional or positive side, like Marcy talked about earlier, waterproofing. And then there's also some newer PVC type products out there as well. So in this picture, basically we're looking at what's the typical, what we usually see as a typical lagging wall. They have the H piles driven in the ground, and then after that they come back in, remove a lot of the soil, and as they do that, they install what's called the wood lagging, and that's that wood that you see in between the different H piles or I-beams there in the picture. Now they can use, they can front lag or the back lag or middle lag that lagging. So it's very important when you get on one of these type of jobs to make sure that your local rep's involved, because there's different ways to approach the actual application of the sheet, depending on which or where that wood lagging is placed within the I-beam system.
And then the drainage mat comes next. And I think when you mentioned shoring, it can be made of a variety of different things. So here you've got a slurry wall instead of the wood.
Yeah, so here basically a slurry wall, in case someone's not familiar with that, is basically what they do is use like a shotcrete mix of concrete to help hold the earth back. So basically they don't form it up real nice and neat. They even it out and smooth it out, but it's not what I would say a beautifully finished piece of concrete, but it's good. It's flat. It serves us well to apply the drain mat, like Marcy mentioned, and that always comes typically before you install the waterproofing.
And then you just mentioned it, of course, the installation of the waterproofing.
Yeah, so after the drain mat is placed, and since we are in a blindside application, you have to remember that everything's kind of reversed in nature. So the drain mat, when it's installed first, it's typically, if you were in a backfilled wall, you'd see the woven fabric, but in this instance, the woven fabric would go against the lagging wall. And also the HDP, in this instance, it's like a Parasail membrane, would go against the drain mat, and the bentonite would be facing you, because you like that to have a positive contact with the concrete pour, which, as we know now, since we've talked about blindside applications, the concrete comes last here.
Yep. And then, of course, your structural wall.
Yeah, so in this instance, they're actually doing a shotcrete application. So many times you can see that the membrane's already in place behind the rebar. So the rebar actually comes up after the membrane's already there. And here they're actually using a pump to spray the concrete in, and then you'll have a finish guy that we don't see here coming back and finishing and smoothing everything up. And there's actually ACI publishes brochures and published information on how the shotcrete should be applied and how many lifts and how it should be finished. So they can always refer to ACI for the shotcreting process.
It's interesting, all the work that's done in reverse, right? So the whole idea of what we do in your typical conventional waterproofing and doing it all in reverse. Now we're going to talk a little bit about specific technologies that we have to help with this type of application. And the first one up is Parasail.
Yeah, so Tremco's had Parasail for over 30 years now in the marketplace. So it's tried and true, and it's been out there and it's been used in millions of square feet of blindside and below slab on grade waterproofing. The Parasail membrane basically is a high density polyethylene membrane at 20 mils with about 100 to 120 mils of bentonite that's actually laminated to it, and then there's a scrim cloth to help protect when they pour against it.
So this one's interesting because now we're looking at mechanically attaching it, Paul, and then we need compaction, right?
Yes.
So that's how that dual waterproofing system is going to work. So once you mechanically attach it, one might be nervous about mechanically attaching it because you're putting holes in your membrane, but that's where the bentonite comes into play, is it will swell around any type of situation where there might be a leak, but that's what's critical about that compaction part of it.
Exactly, Marcy.
And then the next one, and all of these have really great videos as well, I should mention. So a lot of great videos explaining the installation of these can be found on the Tremco CPG YouTube channel. This one is somewhat, it's not new products, but it's a new developed system geared towards blindside applications.
Yeah, so I mean the Parasail LG, because the bentonite is actually facing the installer and exposed to the elements during the application. There were some instances, especially out in the Pacific Northwest, where we get a lot of rainfall, and that rainfall can be obviously going on during application and construction. So they had some issues maybe once in a while with the pre-wetting of that bentonite. And while it's not really harmful for the bentonite to be pre-wetted because it can go through wetting cycles without a problem, we just don't like to have driving rainstorms against it. So to help protect it against that, we actually introduced the Tremproof 260, which is our spray applied asphalt emulsion product, over the Parasail LG. And this they can basically fast cure this membrane, and within 5-10 minutes it's already skinned over, and any rain that would hit against it would just shed off, and it also makes a nice strong bond with the concrete once it's poured against it. So this was a great addition over our product, helping further basically make the jobs go much more smoother.
And I think what's cool
Right.
with this one, Paul, is it solved that problem of exposure of the bentonite, right? And it came from the field. So we talk about that a lot, like where do these ideas come from? And that user and that market and those reps were like, there's got to be something we can do so that we can protect it. How about if we use something like this? And then they obviously worked really closely with Wes and others to make sure that it was, the appropriate application.
Yeah, I think that's one of the benefits at Tremco is we have all these different systems, Marcy,
Yeah.
so it's easy to
Mix and match.
and pick and choose. And in this case, I'm really impressed, Wes, that talk about belt and suspenders, right?
Yes. Oh my
Yeah,
gosh, right?
exactly.
Triple waterproofing for sure.
Yeah.
And then this one here, which pretty excited about being able to introduce this one as well. This Sheetify waterproofing system that you're going to use once again in a variety of different applications, but we can also use it on blindside. But this is specifically our Amphibia product. Wes, tell us a little bit about this product.
Yeah, so the Tremproof Amphibia is a really neat product, and we're getting a lot of drive through with this product now. It's a lot easier in my mind for the guys to use. It's lighter than what the typical Parasail roll is, so the guys like it for that reason. So it's easier to install for them. But basically, this is a multi-layer system that basically has an EPDM as the main carrier, and then it also has a reactive core in it, so that anytime there's some type of puncture, that core reacts and it self-seals. So it's very new technology for us, and so far so good. It's really taken off.
So not new technology to us, technology that's been used for many, many years over in Italy. So once again,
Yep.
Tried and true product, but it's made me a liar, Paul. You know why?
Why is that?
Because I've always said membranes don't self-seal. When we talk about air barriers and facade anchor testing, I'm always like, hey, when you pull that, whatever your fastening mechanism out, seal that back up with sealant or something. They will not self-seal. This product actually does. It actually seals back up when you remove the fastener. It's pretty cool. Very cool.
Yeah, I mean, there's actually some demo pieces that we have where there's water inside a cube, and you can actually poke it with a nail and pull that nail out, and you'll see a few drips, and the drips immediately stop. So it's really neat technology.
Yeah, so if you are not a believer, email me, mtyler@tremcoinc.com. I'll send you the video, but I'll also talk to you about how you can make your own sample so that you can do that. Now, Wes, we have a picture of a nail. When we've passed this cube around, people have stuck their pens in there. They've stuck threaded fasteners, and one of our reps, who I will not name, stuck his finger up into the membrane. It seals back up. Impressive. So once again, just that ability to know, that peace of mind that if there is, something going on where it does get penetrated, you've got that hydroreactive layer that's going to seal it back up. I think we have another picture of just that, those layers that you mentioned.
Yeah, and what's nice too is that you got that non-woven geotextile, and once that concrete hits it, you can't pull the membrane off for the most part. It's just so tightly bonded. So it's nice to have something bond that tightly to that concrete. We don't have to rely anymore, Marcy, on the confinement if it's an issue at the job site.
Yeah, so if there's any type of settling of the ground around it, you don't have to worry about that compaction or that confinement anymore because it's chemically bonding to the concrete. So once again, this solved a lot of what we heard were problems or situations that people were facing in the installation. So now we've got something that, weather's not going to affect it because the getting rained on is not going to react to that hydroreactive layer because it's in between. So it's a really nice way to deal and waterproof. I know lots of great information on this as well. A great video that's available on our YouTube channel again to help you out. And I know that our colleague John Trenta wrote a whole article on just that, Blindside Waterproofing, the Ultimate Architect's Guide. So if you are interested in more information, you absolutely can reach out to me, your local sales rep, John Trenta or Wes Hensley. And if you're also interested, we would love to give you a full presentation on waterproofing. And I always like tag teaming with Wes. Makes it a lot more interesting for you guys to hear both of us banter, right? We've bantered for many years. So Wes, thank you for joining us today. Really appreciate you being a part of this today. Any closing comments you'd want to make?
Just thank you very much for having me. And as you mentioned as well, Marcy, this amphibia can have water ponded on it. And we've had it. And all they have to do is basically vacuum that water off of it, or use some type of system to pull it back off before they pour the concrete, and it's ready to go. There's no issue. You don't have any problems whatsoever. So that's another nice feature of this product as well. But thank you guys. So you guys enjoy your weekend and have a good rest of your day.
Perfect. Thank you, Wes. Thanks everybody for joining us. Stay in tune with us all month in the month of January as we talk to you about what's new. Thank you.
See you next week.
Thank you. Bye-bye.